What's up, guys? It's Eric from Rare Candy, and today we're back with another episode of Battle on a Budget, where we take a look at, like competitive and semi-competitive decks that maybe new players have a better chance of building. I know when you first start playing, more seriously in the card game, some of these staple cards like Versus Seeker, Shaymin EX, and even things like Battle Compressor 2 can sometimes be hard to get your hands on, so that's why we're doing these videos, just to give newer players more ideas for decent decks they can start out with. So today we're going to be taking a look at Swampert back from the Primal Clash set. It's a card that's actually been a little bit forgotten about at this point, but I still do think it is a decent attacker. The card itself is very balanced, has a decent attack, an ability, and an ancient trait as well. So I figured this would be a decent option for new players to look at. So let's just jump right into the Pokemon. The whole deck is based around Swampert, like we were saying. So it's a stage 2 Pokemon with 140 hit points, 3 retreat cost, and unfortunately a grass weakness. That is a little bit pesky since Vespiquen is still a popular card, and so is Sceptile to some degree as well. But anyways, luckily it does have some really good stats going for it with its attacks and abilities. So it has the Alpha Growth Ancient trait. Whenever you attach an energy from your hand to Swampert, you may attach an additional energy. So that's really good. It makes Swampert very self-sufficient, and he can power himself up without the need for, running some additional energy acceleration cards. So that's really nice. And has the ability Diving Search. Once during your turn before you attack, you may search your deck for any card and put it on top of your deck. Shuffle your deck, then put that card on top of it. So again, Swampert is very self-sufficient. He's inherently a bit of a consistency booster. And the other Pokemon that we run in this deck will have synergy with this ability too. And then the attack is Hydro Pump for 3 colorless. It does 40 plus 30 more for each water energy attached to this Pokemon. So you can see the obvious synergy between his ancient trait and the attack. Ideally you attach an energy from hand on your first turn, and then on your second turn you rare candy into the Swampert and attach 2 more energy using the Alpha Growth ability that he has. So this is really nice. This means Swampert can 2-shot pretty much most anything in the format. With 3 energies, you're doing 130. So even the biggest megas that are kind of relevant are maybe Groudon, and maybe even if you go against Wailord, you can still 2-shot Wailord, which is awesome. So, and you can even keep attaching energies to boost Swampert's damage output to, taking 1-hit knockouts. But most of the time we are trying to just 2-shot everything, just because it would require a huge energy commitment on a single Swampert to take some of those 1-hit knockouts otherwise. So this is the guy the whole deck is based around. Really solid attacker, I think. The basic and stage ones aren't too special. There's nothing really particularly noteworthy about them. But the other card we're playing that is going to kind of make this deck work is Octillery. So Octillery's been around for a little bit now, and people play it because of the ability Abyssal Hand. So once during your turn before you attack, you may draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So, like we said, Swampert has that awesome Diving Search ability that lets you put a card on top of your deck. So you do that, and they use Octillery's ability Abyssal Hand to draw that card. So this is really cool. It basically gives you a free computer search every turn. And also, with Octillery, you can, if you already have a low hand size, you can draw, maybe 2 or 3 additional cards with this ability. I know some people preferred to play Swampert with, what was that card? Oh, Slurpuff, that's what it was, back when the card first got released. But now that Octillery's out, I think this is probably the better way to go, just because it allows you to play a heavy count of Dive Ball, and that allow you, I think, more options and versatility when choosing what you want to search out. Whereas when you played Slurpuff, you had to run like a different ball engine, but I like this route a little bit better, I think. So that's Octillery. great synergy with Swampert, and we don't need to play Shaymin as a result, which is one reason I thought this deck would be a good choice for this segment. And it also is worth noting too, we are playing this Remoraid. There's two different ones. We're choosing the one with the Wild River attack. So just for a colorless energy, you can switch Remoraid with one of your bench Pokemon. So I felt like this ability this attack was more handy than the Remoraid with the other attack. I think it's like discard a stadium or something to that effect. Okay. And then we're also just playing one Jirachi. So this deck, I will not lie, it is going to struggle against some of these, I guess, blazing fast turn 1 decks like Night March and Vespiquen, and even Mega Rayquaza as well. So, and these are all decks that really rely on double colorless energy. So typically, you're really not going to get going until turn 2 and maybe even turn 3 in some cases. So we do need at least one copy of Jirachi. If you can get your hands on a second one, I actually think 2 might be a good play in this deck. But you really need a way to slow down these decks that are reliant on double colorless energy. And you're doing that with Jirachi's attack Stardust. So just for a colorless energy, it does 10 damage, and you discard a special energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. If you do, prevent all effects of attacks, including damage done to Jirachi on your opponent's next turn. So that's why we're playing it. It's just to slow down some of these much faster decks to give us a chance at really coming back and staying in the game. So moving on to the trainer line, I'll start with the supporters. So we're playing 2 Professor Sycamore, discard your hand and draw 7. We're only going to play 2 though, just because there are a lot of moving pieces in this deck. There's a stage 2 line, there's a stage 1 line, there's rare candy. So a lot of times there's things we don't really want to discard. So having said that though, we are still going to play 2. Sycamore is debatably the best draw supporter in the game. So there's still situations we are going to want to use this card. Our main draw supporter though is going to be N. So each player shuffles their hand into his or her deck and draws equal to the amount of prize cards they have left. So since we are saying we are a slower deck, there is a good chance we are going to go down on prizes first. So not only will N allow us to, have a form of shuffle draw and, refresh our hand without discarding our resources like with Sycamore, but we can also punish our opponent for having a faster start than us too. So I think N is definitely the preferred supporter in this type of deck. We're also going to be playing 2 Lysander. Switch your opponent's bench Pokemon with his or her active Pokemon. So like we're saying, Swampert is reliant on 2 hit knockouts, so that's why I think that 2 Lysander is the optimal count as opposed to just 1. So I think that's definitely a good choice for this deck. Next up is Hex Maniac. So since we are a stage 2 deck that is reliant on rare candy, and item lock decks don't really seem to be going anywhere. I don't think they will, probably until the rotation hits for next season. So until then, I think we definitely need something like Hex Maniac to shut off those pesky item locking abilities. So that way we can use rare candy and get out our Swamperts. It is unfortunate we would have to shut off our own Octillery and Swampert, but sometimes you have to do that in order to get a Swampert into play with rare candy. So that's why we're going to play one of these. And then lastly for our supports, we're going to play 1 Giovannis Scheme. So Giovannis Scheme has 2 different effects that you can pick. You can either draw until you have 5 cards in your hand. So there's obvious synergy between this and the Swampert that we have. But also the other effect is equally as good. So during this turn, your opponent's attack, or your Pokemon's attacks, do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So in my testing with this deck, there's a lot of times where I'll get 4 energy on a Swampert. I think 3 to 4 is an average amount that I would get into play. But if you have 4 energy on a Swampert, you're hitting for 160, and that's not quite enough to knock out an EX. So with Giovannis Scheme, you can do 20 more damage and hit for that 180 or that 170 amount that you really need to get some one-hit knockouts on some EXs. So Both effects, I think, tie nicely into with what Swampert is trying to do, so that's why we're opting for this. And I think this card gets even more powerful if you can gain access to some Versus Seekers. I do have some Versus Seeker replacements in this list, but definitely as you obtain them, you should definitely start switching them out for Versus Seekers so you can keep reusing this effect more, I guess, more freely. Okay, moving on to our item cards, I'll start with our tools. So we have 2 Floatstone. Everything in this deck has a pretty big retreat cost. It's mainly for Octillery, just in case someone tries to Lysander that up and stall or something to that effect. You know, we can also put them on our Swamperts if we do need to retreat, but they are mainly here for Octillery. You could debatably cut these and maybe play around with the Manaphy EX, but I prefer just having the Floatstones. That way we have no EX attackers or any EX Pokemon that could potentially give up easy prizes. So that's why we're opting for Floatstone. And the other card that we're going to be playing is Exp Share. So even though Swampert has a lot of great things going for him, he powers himself up. You know, he has an awesome ability, a strong attack. The problem with him though is that you usually have to attach. It takes 2 turns of attachments to actually power him up. So if your only Swampert that's powered up goes down, you're not going to be able to attack for another 2 turns, and I don't think that's very optimal. So that's why we're playing Exp Share. So if you have 2 Swamperts on the field, one is powered up with 3 or 4 energy and the other has none. If you have Exp Share on the benched one, whenever your active Swampert gets knocked out, you can get one of those energies that are on your active and move it to your benched one. And then coming back into your turn, you can attach 2 more energies to power up that other Swampert. So I think a card like this or Max Elixir is kind of needed in order to keep streaming your Swamperts throughout the course of the game. It'd be nice maybe in the future if they came out with a Mudkip or Marsh Stomp that could allow for a little bit of additional energy acceleration. That would be very nice. That way we wouldn't have to run this, but until then, I think this is necessary if you want to continually stream your Swamperts. So that's why we're playing Exp Share, and especially after rotation, this will be a stronger card since we're losing all of the tool removal cards like Xerosic and Megaphone as well. Okay, so you're playing 3 Rough Seas. You know, pretty much everything other than Jirachi is water type, and Rough Seas lets you heal 30 from each of your water Pokemon during your turn. So this is really nice, especially against Trevenant, which will never really knock you out in one hit, which is great. And playing Rough Seas can actually, I think, win you that matchup potentially. Between a well-placed Hex or Lysander to break the item lock and start using Rare Candy to evolve, and this Rough Seas, I think you have a decent chance. So, and also it's good against things like Mega Manectric or maybe Yveltal. You know, things that might take 2-hit knockouts in a lot of cases. So that's why we are playing Rough Seas. And for the rest of our item cards, we have 4 Trainer's Mail. Look at the top 4 cards of your deck, you pick a trainer card and put it into your hand. So that's just a nice consistency booster for us. 1 Super Rod just for recovery, 4 Rare Candy. This is a very, very important card. Since we are playing a Stage 2 deck, we will need to play Rare Candy. It lets you skip the Stage 1 evolution and go straight to the Stage 2. So that's really important if you want to keep chaining your Swamperts throughout the course of the game. Next up we have our Versus Seeker replacements. We have 2 Random Receiver. Reveal cards from the top of your deck until you reveal a supporter card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle the other cards back into your deck. So this is nice because we can, you know, if we don't have a supporter in our opening hand, but we have a Random Receiver, we can play this and hopefully get a supporter that will let us draw cards. Or alternatively, if we have a less than optimal supporter in our hand, like Hex Maniac or Lysander, we can play this and maybe hit the supporter that we would prefer to play. So we're playing 2 of those, and also 1 Pal Pad, just as a way to reuse some of these supporters we have that are like one-ofs. So this lets you get 2 supporters from your discard pile back into your deck. So like we said, Giovannis Scheme and Hex Maniac, we're only playing 1 copy of those cards. So if we do want to reuse them, since we don't have Versus Seekers, assuming you are a new player, this is a very easy to obtain alternative. Like I said, just until you obtain Versus Seekers, you should definitely swap out these cards as you get more. Okay, 1 Professor's Letter. This is actually a pretty important card. So search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards, reveal them, and put them into your hand, and shuffle your deck afterward. So for example, if let's say we have a Swampert with 1 energy, we can use Swampert's Diving Search to put a Professor's Letter on top of our deck, draw it with Octillery's ability, and suddenly have 2 energy cards in our hand to finish powering up the Swampert. This is very important. I found that when I prized this card, it really messed up me getting the turn 2 Swampert Hydro Pump attack off. So very good card in this list. You can maybe even debatably go up to 2, just because, like I said, it did seem to hurt whenever I did prize this card. But nevertheless, I think 1 is very good in this deck no matter what. And then rounding out our trainer cards, we have 2 Level Ball, lets you search out Pokemon under 90 hit points. So that's almost everything in the deck other than Swampert. Everything else is Level Ball searchable, I believe. And then also 4 Dive Ball. Everything other than Jirachi is 90 hit points, so maxing this out makes perfect sense. Better than Ultra Ball because we don't have to discard many resources like Ultra Ball does. Ultra Ball is still nice in some instances just because you can lower your hand size a bit better to draw more cards with Octillery, but there's really not many resources we want to discard in this deck, to be honest. So I feel like Dive Ball is probably a bit better. And then for our energy cards, we are going to be running 8 Water Energy, since we do need Water Energy to power up our Swamperts, and then 2 Splash Energy. This is a card that I feel is very strong in this list. So we're only playing 2 of them just because we do run Jirachi, and there's going to be instances where we really want to hit a Water Energy to attack with Jirachi, and the Splash Energy can only be attached to Water Pokemon. What makes this card good though, whenever you have this attached to one of your Water Pokemon and it gets knocked out, all of those Pokemon get returned to your hand. So especially under Item Lock, this is a very good card because typically you won't have access to things like Super Rod, but with this, it's kind of a form of recovery that can get past Item Lock. And it's also just really good. It helps you keep streaming your Swamperts throughout the course of the game. Swampert goes down. Ideally, you get to preserve one of the energies that was on it using an Exp Share, and you get the Swampert line back into your hand. So, good card. I like it. I don't even know if 4 would be good if we didn't run Jirachi. The only downside to this card is that it can sometimes clog up your hand with these evolution lines when something gets knocked out, and can make it hard to use Octillery's ability. But I don't know. I think the 2 count works nicely in my experience. I haven't had a need for more than that just because we do run Super Rod as well. But still, definitely a good card. I really like this in my testing with it. But yeah, guys, that is the Swampert deck. I felt like this would be a great one for the Battle on a Budget series since we don't need Shaymin whatsoever. Definitely a good choice, I think, for new players getting into the game. And actually, I think after rotation, this deck gets a bit better too, because I think its main weaknesses right now are Night March, probably Vespiquen. Vespiquen Vileplume in particular is a really next to impossible matchup, I think. Unless you just get good with your Jirachis and time them well. So, but after rotation, we lose Battle Compressor and the things that make some of these faster decks tick, and we lose Megaphone, so people can't get rid of your EXP shares. So, might be a deck to keep an eye out on going forward as well. But yeah, guys, that is the Swampert deck. I hope you enjoyed this. Feel free to try this out. Let us know what you think in the comments below, or if there's anything you would change, or any other decks you might want to see. But that is it, guys. Feel free to like and subscribe as usual, and don't forget to check out our merch at rarecandytcg.com, and we will see you guys for the next one, okay?